just hand this time over to our trainer for today, Gopal. Over to you, Gopal.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. So I think today I will try to walk through some of our thoughts and point of view for the next 1 to 1.5 hours, and we can make it a more interactive discussion. So I'll quickly introduce myself and my team, and then also run through the agenda. So I've got a chance to look through some of the profiles of the participants. It's quite interesting, and the areas which you're working are quite good. Like I could see some of the participants come from education background. Some come from healthcare. Um some come from other social enterprises. So overall, the profile of the peoples are look very interesting. Some come from cleaning service, agriculture, music making program. So that is quite interesting as well. So I'm privileged myself to talk with you all. So let's make it more interactive as we speak during the conversation. So just few ground rules uh, for this workshop or discussion. So just for the convenience of everyone, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Then it would be good if you can turn on the video. Apologies, I have to turn off my video a little later because I'm currently dialing in from India, from a rural kind of a place. The signal is not so great, so I apologize. I might need to turn on my video a little later. And then if you have any questions during the conversation or any specific slide, or if you want me to stop or elaborate more on a particular activity, please drop your question on the chat box. If you wanted to speak during the session, in the chat box, put a +1 kind of a signal there, and then type just a +1 in the chat, and then my team will give you a chance or an air time to speak. And then if you want to build or add up on someone else's point during the conversation, you can say +2, and then you can put your name so that we know who is speaking. And then just make it more interactive so that we can learn from each other and make it quite conversational in this topic. So are the rules clear for everyone? So with that note, I think we'll move to the next slide. So that in order to maximize the learning for this today, I suggest all of you to make yourself comfortable in the session, because I know sitting in front of computer for 1.5 hour, your legs will pain or some other kind of troubles. But make yourself comfortable, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy the ride for the next 1 to 1.5 hours. And then the quick disclaimer is what are some of the information we are sharing is Deloitte's proprietary frameworks. So I appreciate if you can keep the information confidential. So during this during my session, I will share some personal stories or examples, or the real-time scenarios where I've helped some of my clients with respect to um, acquiring customers digitally, or what are some of the investors' priorities if they have to choose a startup or a fintech player to work with them. So I will try to share some of these findings. So everything we discuss here, we try to keep it as a private, is confidential, and then we can try to have a more open conversation. So moving to the agenda, as I've just mentioned, we'll start with the welcome and introduction, which is what we are doing now. And then we'll quickly, I will spend around some 45 minutes or so on investor priorities and best practices. What I will be sharing in this part is to give you a perspective of what investor usually look at before they wanted to invest in any startup. What are all the various dimensions they look at? What is the mood currently in Southeast Asia market? Why Southeast Asia market is seen a booming place for the investments? Because I see the cohort in this workshop coming from various countries: Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia. So I've tried to bring that ASEAN flavor. And then we'll take a quick break, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. We play by ear. And then the second half, I will try to give some perspective of what are the key KPIs as an organization or a C-suite of your organization you need to look at if you are planning to onboard the customers digitally. And I will tell you why are they relevant. And then we'll spend some around 30 minutes kind of a time there. And then we've moved to the final part if there's any questions or wrap up. So just to quickly introduce myself, you can see my photo there. I think I have less hair now compared to that photo because that was taken when I was doing my MBA in States. Now I've lost a lot of hair. Consulting, I've gained so many things. I've lost so many things. One of the things I've lost is hair. Just to give you a background, I work as a director in financial services based in Malaysia, but I work in Southeast Asia markets. So precisely in Southeast Asia, the markets I work very closely are Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, Myanmar sometimes, and Malaysia for sure. So these are some of the markets I'm focusing, but it is not stopping me to go to other countries like Philippines, Laos, or something. So from a background perspective, I come with around 12 plus years of experience. I've got a chance to work in 30 plus countries so far, and then precisely worked in US, Europe, Middle East, and then Asia Pacific. So this is my fifth year in Malaysia. I've a long-term visa holder in Malaysia. So liking everything in Malaysia. Except, I mean, when I first moved to Malaysia from Dubai, all of my friends asked me why Malaysia. So after 5 years, I could find out why Malaysia is the best place. So everything is good here. People are very good. Climate is very good. Except ringgit, everything is good. So that's how I usually tell to my friends. That's the love for Malaysia. So coming from an experience perspective, I worked with multiple clients on digital strategy, innovation, cards and payments, insurance, capital markets. These are some of the, and sometimes airlines and retail. And these are some of the industries I worked with. And then I've got fortunate enough to serve big clients, big global banking and financial service firms in Europe, and then in US, and then in Middle East as well. And then I've also worked very closely with few central banks in the region, uh, in the region and Middle East as well. And then I'm also the mentor of a few fintech players in the region. Like I mean, I just joined Deloitte. This is my seventh month or eighth month. Previously, I used to work with Ernst& Young Malaysia as ASEAN fintech leader, where I used to work a lot with the startup and the fintech players. It is like connecting the fintech players to the ecosystem or the corporates, trying to solve some of the corporate problem statements with the fintech or the startup innovation, how to bring startups to scale, how to get new licenses for startups, what is the right go-to-market strategy if they have to enter into new markets, not only in ASEAN but beyond the Middle East, how they can build a scale, what are some of the how we can get the right valuation for the startups, how they should put their technology stack, business proposition. So these are some of the asks I used to help with. I'm also currently helping a few central banks on defining the sandbox strategy. Uh, and then I'm also helping a few offshore jurisdictions, how they can make the offshore jurisdictions like Labuan and other places to attract more investments within the country. So these are some of the work I'm currently doing. And then what is keeping me very busy today is the new digital bank licenses that are coming up in Malaysia. So there is a lot of traction in the market. Uh, there are aspirants from the young startups like you, mature startups, and then incumbent banks and all the big groups. So there is a lot of war going in Malaysia for this new licenses that's coming up. And then from a education background perspective, I come with an electrical engineering background, and then I did my MBA in US from Hult International Business School, currently rated as the top 15 business schools in the world. In fact, I've did two MBAs. One is in finance, and another is consulting. So don't ask me why two MBAs. Maybe I have a lot of time. And the last but not least, I'm the active fintech speaker in the region. So far, spoken in around some 300 plus conferences. I'm also a mentor of a few universities in Malaysia and Australia. I'm also a mentor for the startups and fintech and digital financial services for CPA Australia. Recently, I'm appointed as the global working committee member for digital Islamic banks based in Bahrain as well. So this is some snapshot of what I was doing previously. Hope I can try to give my experiences during the conversation. So moving on, I have four colleagues. I think some of you might be aware. They're helping very actively the TBN Asia and this whole social enterprise initiative we are doing. So maybe I quickly pass on to my colleague Aina to introduce the team. Aina.
Thank you, Gopal. Hello, everyone. I'm Aina. I'm leading Deloitte's Global Social Responsibility CSR basically initiative called World Class across Southeast Asia. So today, I'm very delighted to have this virtual event to mark the milestone of our partnership between Deloitte and also TBN Asia. This event marks the first milestone of our future journey towards empowering social entrepreneurs and social enterprises to empower the greater communities to success basically in this, as we know, rapidly changing global economy. So as we know, globally, millions have been left behind, unable to fulfill their aspiration and potential. This is causing a lot of inequalities, the decline in productivity, and also rising social tension. So across Southeast Asia, many individuals also lack the education, skill, and also access to opportunities. So at Deloitte, we initiate and develop new programs that deliver on the United Nations success SDGs. So the one that we are focusing on are SDG 4, SDG 5, SDG 8, and also 10. So this initiative is part of Deloitte's CSR program called World Class. And through World Class, we are applying our core skill, experience, our global network reach to empower more people through education, skill development, and also access to opportunity. Through Deloitte, basically World Class, through what we do at Deloitte is we are committing our most valued asset, that is our professionals, to creating opportunities for those left behind. So by strengthening our connection with social entrepreneurs and also social enterprises in collaboration with businesses, communities, and educators, we can enable you to access the initiatives that we need to improve, that the community that they need to improve the livelihood of the communities that you're working on to impact. So with me today are my colleagues who have come forward to volunteer their time in this collaboration with TBN Asia. We have Daniel, who is a director in risk advisory and also who acts as our account manager for this program, while Hamza and Farah are from our consulting business who have been instrumental in managing this program at Deloitte. We are very happy to be here today. We also would like to thank TBN Asia for this opportunity and look forward to continuing working with TBN Asia in making a collective impact to the communities by supporting all of you today. So without further ado, I'll pass the time back to Gopal, and thank you all for being here today. Over to you, Gopal. Thank you.
Thanks, Aina. It's very short, precise, and simple. So maybe before we get into the more detailed conversations, I just wanted to check the energy levels of the team here. I've just put in some questions here. I mean, you will see some of these questions as we go along the conversation. I mean, you're free to answer. You can type your answers in the chat. So I think the first question we have for today is, there is this one company where in the four options there, we see they are very much employee friendly, and then they give a preference to their employees to choose 20% of their working time to do personal projects. So they believe, given a chance, 20 if they're allowed to do personal projects, it will improve the overall profitability of the other products. So can someone guess what could be, which company is this? I see the first answer for Stephanie, Google. Before I tell what's the answer, can I let others to participate as well? I mean, there are no gifts and prizes for this, just a ditto. So I see Google, 2 words to Google now. thanks. I think everyone will say Google 3 already. The majority is Google. So I think that's right. Google is that one company which gives 20% of time to the you can do personal projects, which is quite um, uh, interesting. In fact, I think we wanted to suggest to my company as well, but I don't not sure how they will treat this. But thanks, it's Google. So let's quickly move on. So I think based on the conversations I have with the colleagues, I understand the key objectives I wanted to keep for this conversation is give you a perspective um, on the investor priorities based on my experience and what I have seen working with many of the startups and fintechs in the region. And also give you a perspective of what investors usually look at when making an investment in any entity. So what kind of the parameters they look at in order to make an investment. And then the key other area is how you can acquire customers digitally. In fact, this is quite relevant to what I was doing in the market now, because I'm helping a few entities to launch digital banks. So everything they have to acquire digitally. So how you can keep the cost of acquiring a customer to be very low is an individual is a very important parameter we need to cater to. And then I would like to share other related parameters or the perspectives around these areas. Hope the objectives I've put is in lines to your expectations for the call. So I mean, as I've said, the ground rules, keep it interactive. If you have any questions, you can feel free to put in the chat box. If I'm aware of the answer, I will try to give my perspectives, or we can come back to you later. So I'm starting this in more detail on the investor priorities. I think the first slide I started with digital, because the agenda for all of us, I think you wanted to acquire customers digitally. So I think it's very important to look at the digital. I think we are aware and conscious of the fact that digital is going to be the way forward. So every other day there has been interesting new technology that is coming up. So there is a stat which says that it takes only 35 days for a new technology to reach 50 million people these days. So that is the advancement of technology in our current days. So meaning if you want to launch a product after 6 months using a technology, forget it. There will be 10 other entities in the market who might be launching the similar product or looking at a similar business model. So the key thing here is the speed is the essence of the success. So the speed, there are many enablers to get speed. One is you have the right business strategy, you should have technology as an enabler, digital as enabler. So what we see in the market is there are multiple new technologies that have been experimented or incubated by many players in the market. Of all of them, you can see here the little circle inside. The automation is one. Experience innovation is the new thing. What we mean by the experience innovation is these days everything, all the customers are looking for unique experience. They want everything by click of button, drag and drop on your mobile, turn on, turn off, do everything as a mobile, as a platform. In fact, that's why we see in ASEAN market or the Southeast Asia, the mobile penetration is increasing like anything. Even though your financial inclusion or insurance inclusion or other kind of inclusions are quite less, but the internet and the mobile penetration is increasingly getting high. And then everyone are looking for an experience. So if we wanted to be a better startup, we have to start looking at your technology roadmap and your experience innovation roadmap as well, and then focusing on game changing technologies. I will come to this a little later. And then data is intelligence, as we all know and agree, and to the fact that data is the new oil. So the success depends upon how best you can nurture this data and derive insights in order to replicate in your products or bundling or the strategies you make. And then the next is connectivity. So these days it is not a single play game. So you need to be well connected with the ecosystem, so that there is an opportunity to cross sell, upsell, and then build right innovation. In fact, for some of the clients I'm serving, I'm making the consortiums or the ecosystem play for them, so that they can unlock economical values. Focusing more on the game-changing technologies, I think many of them I have listed. This is in a non-exhaustive list of some of the popular technologies we see. And then on the your left-hand side, you can see the current market less than 2 years. These are some of the things which have been using extensively by big enterprises, small enterprises, and SMEs and micro SMEs as well. And then they're focusing on these open source technologies to build new products or platforms which are rich experience. Of all these, what are some of the things which I'm very excited about is something called as the open APIs. I think open APIs, I think, as you all know, I mean, without getting too much into the technical details, like the way how we are communicating with one person to another person. APIs is the way how a platform can talk to another platform. So, I mean, once all these platforms are interconnected together, there is a lot of new things that can be done. So I'm just reading out loud for the interest of some of the participants. Some other key technologies which I see, which I'm quite bullish are, say, for example, cloud is getting very much induced in the way we do things. Social and marketing automation. I think this is quite relevant to the second part of the conversation we are having to do today. So many of the conversations I'm having in the market, they're using artificial intelligence, and then they're automating the whole marketing thing in order to generate leads, qualify leads, and acquire the customers digitally. So this is quite interesting. So I think many of us come from a corporate background. So in order and we all have the sales team within our organizations. So some of the organizations, they're using AI, and then the AI bot will tell to the sales guy, these are the top 10 leads they have to focus on today. So they do a lot of intelligence analytics, and then they pass on these leads to them. So the other one which might be quite relevant is an advanced CRM, which all the new functionalities we have seen, like advanced CRM with respect to the functionalities of sales, marketing, and service. All these three angles, how we can infuse advanced technologies to serve the clients better or customers better, or onboard them. And then the other key one is the microservices. So this is where many of the regulators in the region as well are pushing things to go on microservices. The beauty of microservices is, say, if there are so many features you offer on your platform. So if because of some case, if some feature is not been working, the entire system will go down, or there will be a disruption in your entire system. So with the microservices based kind of an architecture, it will help us to keep some services up and some services done, so that the customer experience is not compromised completely. And then the other areas are mostly moving to the next horizon for more than beyond 2 to 5 years. There's been a lot of talk in the market with respect to blockchain, neural networks, dev security, ops, and all those things. But I think we can stop with the basic ones first. So the key insight from this slide I'm trying to give is, when you're building your startup, or if you wanted to make it exciting for your investor, so have an element or a dimensions of technology or digital play in your whole value proposition. So that's the key disruption. So that's the key message I'm trying to provide here. So moving on to the next slide. So what I'm trying to give in this second slide is wanted to give a snapshot of the digital in ASEAN. So if we look at the total population in ASEAN, it's around some 647 million, which is quite good. And then the urbanization of it is increasing at 48%. And then the interesting part, out of the 647 million, 39% of the population is coming from Indonesia. So if at all a startup want to build a scale, I think they cannot ignore Indonesia. So I mean, Singapore, Malaysia, these are all some of the matured markets, but the population is less. 5 million in Singapore, around 32.6 million in Malaysia. So Thailand, in Indonesia, actually Vietnam, the numbers are quite big. And then if you look at the internet users, this is a very interesting around 342 million is the population if you are using internet users, and then the penetration rate in the whole ASEAN is around 53%. So which is a clear no-brainer to have a digital kind of a business model in your whole proposition. And then if we see the active social media users, this around some 304 million, and the penetration is 47%. When we say active media users, this includes all your Facebook, Instagram, Twitters, and the new Telegrams and all those stuff. And then the mobile subscription is 860 million, and the penetration is 133%, meaning one person holds more than one mobile subscription, meaning they'll have two phones or beyond two phones. That's why you're seeing more than 100%. So which is quite interesting. In fact, some of the stats from Malaysia market, we see the average devices per customer in Malaysia is 3 devices. So meaning one individual will have 3 smart devices. I don't know how they're using it, but what they're using for. But this is something. And then because I see some of the aspirants are coming from Malaysia, the average time spent by a Malaysian on the internet and with all these smart devices is around 13.3 hours a day. So I don't know, they are checking emails or busy in meetings or Skypes or Zoom or doing Tinder or Facebook or something, we don't know. But 13.3 hours is the time spent in a day on all this internet and all. So that is more than half a day spent on internet. And then the active mobile users, apologies, I'm reading out loud some of these numbers just for the interest of some of the participants here. And then it's coming at around 272 million, and the penetration is around 42%. So we see a significant growth happening in all of these markets, in all of these parameters. And what we have seen from an investment view perspective, there is a significant shift in the mindset of the investors happening these days. Previously, when we collect the data of all the investment that's happening in these startups, there's a lot of startup activity or investment activity used to happen in US and Europe. Now there is a dramatic shift happening to ASEAN markets from US and Europe to Asia Pacific or ASEAN. The reason is multiple reasons, because ASEAN or the Southeast Asia countries have the highest digital savvy population, young population. And then the mobile penetration, as we have seen some of the numbers here, they're getting very high, so which is a good proposition. And then there is a lot of ecosystem is moving towards, like there is a lot of positive vibes within the industry, which is pushing for more investors to look to scout out in ASEAN markets. And then what we have seen, all this the key message from here is all these key digital indicators record a very impressive growth rate across the ASEAN, and then which is a no-brainer to have some of these attributes in your overall business proposition to sound interesting or exciting for the investor who look for you. Moving on. So this is what you have seen here is based on a survey we did a couple of years. And what are the, this is mostly with the SMEs or the MSME kind of a people. What are some of their strategies to achieve business growth in the next coming years? So basically, everyone say, as you can see in the slide, the first priority of many of the C-suite which we have interviewed at the time is you retain your existing customer. So around 60% of them prefer to retain their existing customer. I think this might same for you as well, because serving an existing customer or selling more to an existing customer is a lot more easy and profitable than onboarding a new customer. Because onboarding a new customer, as you all know, as there's a lot of marketing, sales, PR activity is done, but retaining the existing customer and serving them is a lot more easier. That's why when we talk to many of our clients in the precisely in banking and financial service place, there is a parameter we look at, something called as the product holding ratio in the space I'm working with. So what does this product holding ratio mean is, if I'm a single customer to this financial entity, how many products I own with this entity, whether I use deposits, whether I use loans, or I use credit card. So how do we increase this ratio So that's one of the key strategy which many of the entities I see in the market are looking at. So that is the first priority on the SMEs. Second is to look at increasing the amount each customer spends. So this is the second attribute, how we can increase it. Currently on an average, if one customer is spending $20, for example, how we can make it to $30 in next year and $50 in the year two. So what kind of strategies we have to build for that, so that they can spend more with us. So that's the second strategy with us. And then the third important one, which is I think we all agree, is bringing the branding or the market awareness of your business and product. So how you do it? You shout out, or you do word of mouth, or you go digital, or you hire a SEO marketing agent, or it's up to you, or you do press, or you write blog. There's so many ways you can do this. You can go to the market, but the key thing is to bring awareness to your business. And then the fourth one, we see in the top priority, we see the fourth one is bringing efficiency in your overall process. So I think, as we all know, we are all moving towards the digital. No people, zero people ops. That's what some of the acronyms we call in the industry. So there is no manual processing. There is no shake hand of hands. In order to complete one activity, everything should be run digitally. So this is the ideal scenario we can achieve, like the zero people ops kind of a thing. And then and the next one is the gaining new customers more cheaply. So this is where the cost to acquire a new customer comes in play. How do we acquire the customers at a lesser cost, so that if we can keep our overall operational expense low, there could be a chance we can pass some incentive to the customers. And then the adopting innovative technologies, like I think, as I've just mentioned, like how do you look at robotic process automation, AI, machine learning, semantics, voice recognition, so blockchain to some level. These are how we can infuse some of these technologies to transform your business model or launch an innovative product that will position you. And then I think that the last the penultimate one, it's also relevant to the second part of the topic, which is boosting your online sales. So how you can increase your online sales. There are some interesting KPIs which I will cover later. They look at what is the percent of your sales coming from online channels versus offline channels, and also looking at the other indicators, like how many of them coming from social media versus your website or blog or something. So there are multiple dimensions of looking at it. And then the last but not the least is expanding overseas. So I mean, this is I'm very happy this kind of a mindset is coming in the startup community, fintech community. Like previously, the thinking is thinking is you start in one country, you try to get the stabilization there. Say it might take 5 years or 10 years to get a stabilization, then only they think of crossing beyond the borders or oceans. So but now I've seen few startups companies in my experience. On the day one itself, they are a multinational. They start with 3 to 4 countries at a time. So this the change in mindset. I think this is quite interesting. So any questions so far before I move on to the next slide? Do you see some of the strategies are in lines to what you're doing in your organizations, or anything else you wanted to add to this list? Feel free to put your thoughts in the chat for the benefit of everyone. All right. So I think silence is good. I take it as good. I see some of these strategies are in lines to what you are doing in your organizations as well. So I'll quickly move on. So this is the another research which we did as a Deloitte. I would like to share some insights from there. Uh, in the previous slide, we have seen what are some of the business priorities as a C-level suit. In this slide, we will see what are some of the customer priorities in the next 5 years. So I think reading what we have, customers will focus on customers need. The first one is the customization of product and service. So I think we all know there is no one single format of product that will serve your customers better. So this requires a lot of analytics, understanding your customer base or your target customer base, developing into the specific personas of customer segments whom we wanted to tap, and developing a personalized product or service. So this is the fundamental priority. So previously, the industry used to work like product-centric kind of a business model. Now it is changing towards a customer-centric and experience-centric business models. So these are the new acronyms we see in the market that is coming up. The second one is as I've mentioned, experience-centric. It is uh, the second one is increased importance of customer experience. Like how do we enhance the experience? Like if we compare a, so for example, if we're using YouTube, for someone like say 60 years old, we really don't need to teach how to use an YouTube. So the whole experience of the using a YouTube as an app has been made very simplified, which doesn't require much training. Imagine a complex app or a super app, it might require some training. So the key point here is, how do you make sure the clicks or the navigation within your platform or an app make it more easy or convincing to any kind of an age of a person, of a customer who is using it. So that's the kind of customer experience we are trying to bring. So recently I was I was having a conversation with one insurance company. So what this insurance company wanted to achieve is, they will ask a few questions, 30, 40 questions online, and then they will issue a digital insurance policy online. So I mean, they've built this whole process of asking these questions, doing an underwriting or a check, and then issuing a policy. And then what they felt is, asking some 40 questions is distracting their customer, and it's a bad customer experience. So what this company has did is, they've consolidated all these 40 questions into 5 key questions, and then they could able to achieve the same result with asking these first 40 questions into 5 questions. They have built that algorithm, and then they have increased the experience. No need to navigate to 10 screens, just answer these 5 questions. We will take care, we will get these other sources of information of you, and then we will give the whatever the service we want to do, we will offer. So this is the kind of customer experience. In fact, I'm having a conversation with the CEO. I asked him, what is the strategy from 40 to 5, and why only 5? In fact, I was very much surprised with his answer. He said, we wanted to reduce to 3, Gopal, but 2 of them are regulatory, we cannot remove, so that's why we're keeping it to 5. So I mean, the industry is looking at that kind of an experience. So that's um, so this is some of the my industry experience. I'm moving on, and then the third priority we see is rising expectations for quality of money. So I mean, customers should feel the quality of money is there. um, so I mean, I could see the questions coming in which say, what are the important data points, touch points, designing a better UX? How do you better insights, feedback from customers? Okay, I'm reading loud the question loud. One of the question, thanks for asking this, which says, what are the important data points, touch points to pay attention when designing a better UX? Or how do you get better insights, feedback from customer on the UX? So to answer technically and non-technically, there are few tools available in the markets. They call it web trends. The few other tools like Omniture, Site Catalyst. There are few tools. What the beauty of these tools is, they will be embedded in your platform. So with these tools, it will tell you on which screen what the customer is doing. Say for example, you're showing some price of your product on your platform. So these tools can analyze whether this pricing is difficult. What is the customer's opinion of this pricing? Did he drop off after looking at this pricing, or which part in the screen they have clicked? um, so you know the complete experience, what the customer is feeling, whether they are getting excited or motivated moving to next screen, or what is the roadblock from them in your platform. So there are few tools I can type in here for the ease of reference. um, this is called, these are few tools, maybe there's a lot more. Just for the reference, I'll say there is something called web trends and Omniture, Site Catalyst, which is quite and then the Google Analytics is another. These are some areas to get the feedback on the UX. It will clearly tell on which button they didn't like it, which drop down they didn't like it, how much time it is taking for each of this thing to pop up. And then important data points for you to design a good customer experience is doing surveys. So what we do in some of the exercises we do is we do some surveys or mystery shopping. So for example, if I have to define a new product, I do a mystery shopping on the road to ask some of the pain points of what customers are feeling and try to reduce some of these pain points in the workflow which we design. So this is one way. Hope it answers precisely. Moving on. And the fifth point here we see is the reduced physical cash, like everything is moving to digital mode. So that's one. And then value-based purchasing. And then the number 7 here is uh, great use of technology and research, I think which we have in lines to discuss, and great use of self-service. Give options to customers that can enable them to do self-service. So many of the customers these days prefer that rather than calling the calling the individual. And another question coming besides SEO, what do you do to attract a potential customer to your website? SEO is the starting technique. So there's so many other ways you can attract. One is like having a more partnerships, collaborations. These days, many of the entities I see, they are partnering with cross industry players, like partner with an aggregator, so that they will push a lot of traffic to you. If there's any search on the aggregator or a network, they will push to you. So these are some of the collaborations you can look at. And some of these questions are quite good. They are actually $1,000,000 questions. I mean, since it's a social enterprise, we are not putting a price to it, but thanks for the good questions. And then the last few things here is rise of standards in the living markets. That's also an important criteria to look at in your whole strategy. Just moving to the next slide. So coming from an investor mindset, before they choose one startup to invest, this is the process they go through. So initially, they will do a market scan in the market to get a potential list of the startups they can look at. So I mean, the criteria for looking this long list as they will be having some problem statements in the market, like I want to solve this kind of a particular problem. They will try to look for the startups of fintech who cater to this problem. So the initial checklist is they look for the problem relevance, and then they do some business study or an operational status of this entity in order to find out more or shortlist. So the green color, the first bar, is these parameters. And then once they have the initial list of 30 to 40 startups, then they will shortlist the further companies based on the business check, like the due diligence of your business. That's one. And then they look at your solution or product relevance to the problem statements more detail. And then the third point they look at is the maturity of your solution, whether you are at a early stage or you already went live, or how many of the people are looking at it. So that's another. And then the commercials, how cost effective your solution is, how much is your price. So that's the. And then the infrastructure. So these days we all want the infrastructure to be agile, simple, lightweight, and then we wanted high availability to all your customers. So that's another angle they look at. So out of this 40 30 or 40, for example's sake, they bring it down to 10 15 based on the second list of criteria. And then they bring down this 10 to 15 to further looking at the viability. How viable is your business model for the next 5 years? What are your revenue and cost factors? How do you get your working capital done? So do you have any loans at the moment? What is your co-founder's profile? So all these things will be used as and then they look at your detailed technology design, and then the solution approach, how you derive this solution, and then what is the desirability of this solution to the market needs or the problem statement. So it will help us to drill down further from this 10 to 15 startups to 2 to 5 startups. And then finally they will do a POC with 1 or 2 startup, and they get married with this startup. This is exactly what I've seen currently happening in the market. In fact, I run a couple of accelerator programs for few clients. So accelerator programs, what do we mean is I work mostly with the corporates on these accelerator programs. We shortlist 5 to 6 problem statements. I want to solve this, solve this, solve this, and then we invite the startups to bid for this problem statement, and then they give their solution. We go through this process to evaluate, and then we finally shortlist 1 or 2 players for incubation with them. Or once the incubation is done, it can take any path. either the corporate can invest in this startup, or this startup can offer as a corporate solution. So or they can take a minority stake in this startup. So a lot many the outcome could be quite different. So this is a very interesting model, and I think these are all the things we need to keep in mind in order to be the final one or two in your investors eyes. Moving on. So, I mean, the next slide is very close to my heart, and this is something which I have built based on my experience of working with startups and corporates on the fintech space, on what are the key startup capabilities an investor will look at in order to make an investment. So I've put it into 6 buckets. One is the first one is the market and strategic assessment. So the investor will look in your startup based on some of these angles. They do a market assessment. How relevant is solution? What problem statement is solving? What is the competitive advantage of your solution with respect to some of the others? They also do a business model review. So when we say business model review, we talk of multiple attributes like what is your customer segments, what are your profit pools, what are your revenue pools, what kind of channels you have to work with, what kind of infrastructure you have to build with, what kind of regulatory considerations you have to consider. So it look at the whole business. We call it the business model canvas in the consulting terms. So they will look at, and then they validate the strategy. I mean, this is very important. So the first dimension which all of the investors look for, or being a corporate investor here, I'm using the word interchangeably. It could be an angel investor, or could be another corporate or an entity, or someone else as well. The second parameter they look at is the financials, the quality of the earnings you have. What is your the cash flow for the next 5 years? And then who are your investors in your company? That's also very important. In fact, this is my personal learnings. I've got my hands burnt last time. We have tried to collaborate with one company, one company, and then we have connected with a corporate, and then we liked the solution. We wanted to go ahead, and towards the end, we found out the investors coming for this company are from those islands which we wanted to avoid. Like this, what are those islands where the investments come from? So as a part of due diligence, we have to call off this deal at a last stage, because from a corporate governance perspective, or as a good grounds, we cannot entertain investments coming from these countries. So the financial earnings is an important parameter. If you have an existing business, it is not necessary you need to be a profitable entity before you look for investment. As long as your business model, your cash flow stack up, I think you're good to look for investors. And then the people and operations, I think this is the very key important attribute. For example, if you wanted to get a license from any of the entities, first thing they will look at as the people, and the people, how strong is the people, what background they come from. I mean, we have to give confidence to them that you are operationally capable to run the show for this company. So that's the key attribute. And then we have to give what is your current operating model, who is your advisors, how much time they spend, what is their background. So everything will be a part of the people and operations thing. And then the whole transaction structure, how are you doing your tax structuring? It may not be relevant to some of in the call, but this is another attribute we see for big deals. And then the technology and cyber. So I think I've mentioned that technology is a key enabler. In order to get a high valuation of your startup or fintech, you definitely need to have angle, or need to proposition of technology or digital. So that this will be looked very widely by the investors. And then since technology and cyber come on two different hands, while we all feel very happy about the new technology innovation, but you need to take care of the risk that are associated with the technology. So you need to have the right balance between the innovation and the risk management. So that's the attribute we looked at. And then the next attribute is mostly on the risk, regulatory risk and compliance. Like, we are dealing with a lot of customer data. what kind of data standards we follow, PDPA, and data security controls. If we are working with agents or something, how do you make sure the information is secure? So the whole the risk regulatory angle. So if you're working in a regulated environment like banking, insurance, or some other space, you have to take care of a lot of reporting and all. So precisely, if an investor will look at these attributes: your market and strategic position, your financial strategy, your people and operational strength, what kind of transaction structure you do, your cyber and technology capabilities, and then your knowledge with respect to risk, regulatory, and compliance. These are all the 6 attributes we see investors look for in order to assess whether you are a strong candidate to build more synergies or you put a dollar in. Any questions here before I move on to the next one?
Gopal, there are a couple of questions in the chat actually.
I see. Okay, just referring. For fintech companies, essentially for the typical potential customer, there is not much difference between one solution to the next, the same in the industry. How do you suggest for us to tackle the digital space, or what do you see in regards to digital marketing strategies that works for the fintech companies? So this is a very relevant question. This is what we tell to the fintech companies as well. Currently, if you look at the ASEAN markets, the people, these fintechs are trying to solve one key attribute. This fintechs is trying to solve is how do we bring this people from the unserved or underserved segment to the financial service umbrella. So if you look at the traditional enterprises, there is not much difference from the product offerings of all the existing players, all the incumbent players. So the fintech players, with all this using of digital as an enabler or some other technologies, they have to build innovative solution to reach to offer these products. This is first one, and then they should also leverage on this innovative marketing technologies to reach the masses. So either through an agent model, I can tell you some examples. Recently, I've connected with one Indonesia player company called Crowdy. So what this Crowdy as as a fintech company, what they do is the strategy is quite different. As we all know, many of the countries in ASEAN are agricultural dependent. I mean, majority of the GDP, I mean, in fact, significant contribution is coming from the agriculture or mining or manufacturing kind of industry. So what this fintech company will do is, instead of giving loans to SME by cash and all, they give agricultural equipment as a loan. So they give tractor as a loan, or they give some kind of an equipment as a loan, and then they collect the amount on top of it. This is one innovative model. There are few other players, like for example, in the rural areas, there is not much cash points, like there are no ATMs or no banks or no other entity. So what these fintech players are trying to do is, they partner with a retail shop, like they partner with KFC, or they partner with mama papa shops in some of these markets, and then they act as a cash in and cash out. Like you walk to this for example, I think in Malaysia, many of you know KK Mart or something, for example. So you walk into KK Mart, they will show you a QR code on your app. The KK Mart guy will scan the QR code, and then you can take 300 ringgit. So this is an innovative business model for customer acquisition or giving an experience. These fintech players are evolving these days. For example, there is one bank in Philippines. They work with a drugstore as their cash in, cash out. So you walk into a drugstore, you can take 300 ringgit, and then they will deduct from your bank account at a later stage. So quite interesting models we see. Moving on to the next slide. So I think this is getting too much technical into some of my experiences and all. So maybe I just wanted to pause here and ask some question. So I just wanted you to guess. This one company among the top 5 companies to work for Generation Z and millennials in LinkedIn. So the LinkedIn has recognized this company as the top 5 for Generation Z and millennials. Any guess which company this could be?
You need to read out the options, because
the options we have. The options we have here is, one is eBay. I think we all know eBay. Amazon, it is getting very interesting. Zappos, and then Walmart. Any guess which is this? Which company this could be, which is recognized as the top 5 for Generation Z and millennials? It's not Zappos. EA for eBay, no. I think Stephanie, I think you should get a chocolate. It's Amazon.
I think this is a much harder question.
Much harder question. Okay, so I think I have 2 more questions towards the end. I think that they're a lot more easy to guess. So I think it's Amazon. So I think had we doing this session physically, I would have given some chocolates or diamonds in a different way, but we have to be happy with the virtual chocolates for now. All right. I can see some smiles here, so I take that as a good to move on to the next slide here. And then the other key thing, which as the C-level suit of some of these enterprises, you need to focus in. How do you, I mean, you might have developed some solution or a platform, but how do you make sure that your innovation scale in your organization is high? So these are some of the KPIs which we think you need to look at to see the innovation scale in your organization. One is, what are the number of new ideas you have in, or the problem statements you wanted to solve are in pipeline? So you might be knowing it well. And then how big is your database with respect to sending leads or something? It's one. What kind of what are the number of scaled projects you're currently happening in your organization? And then the output of your innovation, I think this one you can measure also, like how many patents or IPs registered, how many new products or services that have been launched. I think many of you are aware of the concept called MVP, which is called as a minimum viable product. So I think there is no surprise in MVP, but what we see industry is moving is from MVP, which is minimum viable product, it is moving to something called maximum viable product. Meaning, from giving a minimum product which in your first launch, how can we re-strategize to give maximum benefit within the less time to your customers? This is called maximum viable product, in lines to MVP concept. And then the industry is moving from minimum viable product to maximum viable product, and now it is moving towards another new acronym for MVP. Any guess for that? I mean, the key difference, the new acronym for MVP is the rest 2 words are same. The only one word will change. That's for V. Sorry, no, sorry. It has been changed completely. Maybe I think it is too hard to guess. From maximum viable product, the industry is moving towards maximum lovable product. So what is maximum lovable product mean is, how do you make sure you create a product that will be loved by your customers? So I mean, you have to do your design in such a way, from minimum viability to maximum love we want to get for your products. That's where the industry is moving towards. These are some of the benchmarks you need to look at to measure your innovative scale within your organization. So I think that sounds good, right? We always want to receive the maximum love, be it from your solution provider or be it your family, whoever it is. So that's where the industry is moving towards. And then the other outputs of innovation, as I've mentioned, uh, the other outputs of innovation we see is like your revenue generation, your cost savings, and how much of your savings is getting reinvested. So I think I'll quickly jump to the next slide. I think we have parked 1 hour time. I think I'm only 60% done or something. So I could see maximum lovable product is a word which is catching to your eyes and ears. So yes, it's a cute term. But it's not a fiction. It is a reality happening in the market as well. So this slide, what I'm showing here is what are some of the risks you have to mitigate in your organization that will generate more interest for the investors. One is the regulatory risk. So how do you make sure your adherence to all the risk and compliance aspects? That is one. And then the second is the service risk. How do you make sure, since we are looking at a digital business model, how do you make sure there is no service risk? And then if there's any service delay, how do you make sure you can bring them up? That's one attribute. And then the exit strategy risk. So this is what we see happens in the market. Usually the founders, there will be co-founders, 3 co-founders, 4 co-founders and all. Eventually after 2-3 years, when they start the journey, they may not like it, and one of the co-founder may step down. So or they have to step down the business. So in that case, how do you make sure your customer interests are not compromised? So this is or if you have to replace with one co-founder with another co-founder, how do you mix and match the equity structure at that point of time? So these are some of the exit strategy considerations we have to consider, or the risk we have to mitigate as we progress. And then the next is financial risk. A financial risk, like how do you make sure you have the right capital, working capital to meet your needs, the book is clean and all those things. That's another attribute to look at. And then the next is the business continuity risk. Say for example, if you're working with a partner to bring some solution, so if that partner is not responding and your service is being disrupted, how do you make sure you bring this service to back? This is the business continuity risk. And then the reputational risk. What are the things you put in your strategy to make sure your reputation is not lost? So that is another attribute. And then the country risk, which may not be relevant. So for example, if you are a startup and you wanted to start operations in 3 countries, and then all of a sudden, say for example, you have in uh, Malaysia, Indonesia, and some other country A, and because of some political disturbances, the center in that country A cannot operate. So how it will impact your whole business? So what kind of strategies there? So these are some of the key risk items which you need to look at in order to make sure it will excite the clients. So moving on to the next slide. So this is just a snapshot. I think this may not be completely relevant to you, knowing some of your background, but I just wanted to tell you where is the startups or fintechs in ASEAN markets coming from, and what other markets we see it's less. So if you look at Indonesia, I've listed down Indonesia, how many fintechs are there, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and all. Of all this, you see Singapore is having around 1157 numbers. I think this number could change here and there. This is based on the last time when I did a quick look. So in Singapore is getting the hub for this new startups and fintech, followed by Indonesia around 511, and then Malaysia around 376 fintech, and then followed by Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. So the good part of these countries is all of these countries are trying to portray one key strength for themselves. For example, Singapore is trying to portray themselves very strong in wealth management or payments kind of a thing. Indonesia is trying to portray themselves for e-marketplaces on an Islamic way of doing things. And then Malaysia is trying to look at lending businesses or P2P places, and also in Islamic places. And Vietnam is getting very stronger with respect to payments. I mean, I travel a lot to Vietnam for work, and I'm always surprised the new things that are coming up there. Thailand is promoting a lot with respect to SMEs to participate on new technologies, AI, blockchain, and all. So this gives a very good scene what is happening in the ASEAN markets. All right. Moving to the next one, and these are some of the most active investors you see in some of these countries. Like it's in a non-exhaustive list, but you might be knowing some of them, like 500 startups, Mavcap, Kickstart Ventures, and these are some of the popular startup who look for good startups or fintech to invest. Moving on. So I'll quickly run through this. What we are telling in this slide is there is a significant jump in the investments happening in ASEAN, which is a good sign, something which you wanted to hear as well. So previously, there's a lot of investment used to happen in Europe and Asia. Now we see a shift happening to ASEAN markets for some of the reasons I've mentioned earlier. And if you look at where the dollar is going, investment in ASEAN is mostly in the places like the payments, personal finance, accounting technology, banking technology, insurance, and lending. These are some of the areas where we see there is investors is going on. And then the other attributes where we see big investment is happening is on the health tech in Southeast Asia. and then the digital insurance, that is one area, and then few areas where we other areas are like med tech. This is one area. In fact, many of the countries like Australia, New Zealand, Europe and all, they're trying to evaluate what is the opportunity in Southeast Asia with respect to medical technology, health tech, etc. They're doing surveys as we speak. Okay, moving on. So, I mean, without getting too much into details of this slide, what we see is, I think, for the interest of times, what we see, corporate strategy, how you define your corporate strategy in order to get excitement of investors is, it's a 5-step approach. We should look at what are your goals and aspirations on a high level, and you need to build a strategy on where do you want to play, like what kind of businesses, what your customers, products, segments. You should have some view, and then how you should have a strategy on how you will win in these chosen markets. Like what is the value proposition, what are your profit models, partnerships, and then how you will configure those products in order to meet this target markets, and then how do you prioritize your initiatives. So this is a 5-step approach we see that is required for your corporate strategy, right from defining your goals, looking at where do you play, how do you win, how do you configure, and how do you prioritize your initiatives and your budgets. This is a 5-step approach we see. I would be happy to share some of the slides later, so you have some reference point. Moving on. So I think before I close this session on the first half, I would like to get your thoughts on one last question. I think while happening this session, I think many of us tend to look at our mobile devices. So I just wanted to see how often do we tend to look at our mobile device on a daily basis. So this is not any particular country stat, but it's a global survey. How often, like I wanted an answer in, like, say, every 20 minutes or every 1 hour or after every 10 hours or every next day I see. So any you can answer in minutes, please. I see some answers like 100 minutes. I think that's too long. Every hour is too long. 10 minutes too long. 5 minutes too long. 12 minutes too long. 2 minutes, you're getting close, but it's still too long. All right. So based on the global survey, this is not Deloitte, but it's a third party. We see every 18 seconds, we all tend to look at our mobile phones. So this is a global survey, meaning I'm talking to you, I look at my phone and I check who is calling me. Usually I'm afraid if my wife calls me, um, but the purpose is 18 seconds is we all tend to look at this is pre-COVID. I mean, this was done in last year, 2019, but 18 seconds. So what it tells is the influence we have in our lives on the smartphone devices and all. All right. So I think with that, I will take a pause for the first half. If there's any questions, please feel free. So I would like to skip the last slide. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask here. I mean, else we can take a break of 5 minutes and then we come back to take to the next part of the discussion. Hope it's interesting so far.
Okay, Gopal, I think Lara's had a question just now on whether you think guerrilla marketing is still a big hit to increase sales or brand awareness.
So, I mean, although I don't want to say what is good, or what is not good, but I feel it's good to try with all your missiles in your cohort. So although the techniques has been evolved a lot, in fact, some of the modern players, they're looking at content marketing as one strategy. So there's so many incumbent strategies that are existing, but there are new techniques that are coming out. But so if you wanted to tap to some of the new segments, I think it's better to look at modern ways of doing things. All right. Any other questions? Thanks for the good questions so far.
Just for definition, for all those of you guys who are wondering what is this term guerrilla marketing, for the lack of better word, is that things are a little bit less conventional. So as what Gopal mentioned, if it's like content marketing, that's a little bit different. Some of you guys who attended the thank you sessions, you would know some examples on non-conventional marketing that kind of cuts through the chase and speaks to your target audience. That's what is meant. So there's no real right and wrong answer. It's just that people in my past life, people used to come to me and say, how do I create a viral marketing campaign? I kind of say viral marketing is kind of like a bad word because no one can predict what will go viral or not, right? So it really does depend on your creativity.
Yeah, you should know the pulse of your audience in order to create a right marketing campaign. In fact, I work with a few banks and big groups and defining their loyalty strategy, and then it is not so easy. Like loyalty strategy for their employees, for their customers, it is not so easy task. You have to look at 100 different things.
Yeah. Okay, so just letting everyone know, that was part one, where we kind of talked about a bit more of the landscape, right, and things that investors look out for. So that's part one. After the break, we are really going to drill in a little bit more on the details of KPIs you should be looking out for as far as your online sales are concerned. So your online marketing and sales are concerned, and 16 of them to be precise. So stay tuned. We are now drilling a lot more into the details after the break. Okay. Any further questions so far?
Yes, there
Oh,
is,
we have one from
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Is there a prerequisite to a digital strategy? Oh, yes. It's what do you need to prepare and have before launching one. So this is a topic on its own. The digital strategy, like the way I've mentioned, the business strategy, the digital strategy has a lot more competence. There's a lot of prerequisites, like what is your customer base is, how many of them are digital, non-digital, how do you want to reach this customer, physical or digital, what is the right customer experience you wanted to reach this digital strategy, how do you look at your digital infrastructure, what kind of resources or technologies that will enable you to reach these customers. So it's a new different story on digital strategy, and I feel it's a new topic on its own. All right, so I think thanks for the good participation so far. We'll take some 5 minutes break, and then I'll also have my water, and then we will catch up in 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Apologies, I'm delayed by 10 minutes or so, but I'll try to speed up a bit.
Okay, we'll be back by 11:20. See everyone.
Farah, Gopal, whenever you guys are ready.
Hi, welcome back again. Can we have the slides, please? So before the slides are up, I have some about 15 to 20 minutes left because I need to join a few other unexpected meetings which got scheduled. So in the second part of the conversation, I will try to give some of the key KPIs which you need to look at for acquiring your customers. These KPIs are the industry standard KPIs which everyone need to look at or need to have a view. Moving on. So we call it the 16 market KPIs. I mean, I will, for the best interest of our times, I may not be able to deep dive into some of this, but I'll just quickly tell what are these 16 KPIs are, and then I'll deep dive into some of these critical things which are quite essential to look at. Say, I mean, just for the interest of some of the audience, I have this 8 KPIs in this slide, followed by another 8 in the next slide. So the first one is the sales growth is one key KPI to look at. For your short-term and long-term strategy, the sales growth is quite important. And it's quite necessary for you to do a strategic planning. It also look at this sales growth is a very good measure to benchmark yourself with the industry growth. Let's say, for example, industry for that particular segment is growing at 4% CAGR growth rate. And then if you look at your sales growth for the same product or service, if it is going at only 1% or 2%, meaning you're not up to the speed of the industry, meaning that you still need to catch up a lot. Or if you are going beyond the industry growth rate, that is well and good. Maybe then you can do a study of what are all the indicators that are helping you to reach faster or grow faster than the market, which you might need to continue. So the sales growth is quite important. Usually we say we all the enterprises, when we talk, or the startups we talk to, we ask them to focus on leading indicators, like rather than the lagging indicators. Say, for example, if you create your MIS reports or sales reports in the past 6 months reports, and if you try to evaluate now, it will tell you some information, but the information is about the past. It may not be able to tell you more and react correlatively for the immediate future or something. So, for example, if you are launching a new product or something, before you launch the full product, you can have an intermediary leading indicators within your flow, so that it gives a corrective action to fine tune anything before it goes live or before it gets delayed. So these are the things we call it as leading indicators in the market. The next is the leads. The second KPI is the leads. There is a simple math which says more leads is directly proportionate to your more sales, which is good and bad. I mean, which is true, or some cases it could be true, some cases it may not be, because we need to look at the leads conversion ratio as well. So, but the key basic math is it's better to have more leads. These leads could be from multiple channels. It could be from your agents, it could be from your digital channels, or it could be from your referrals, or it could be from word of mouth. And then the third attribute I see, which is very important, is the lifetime value of customer. So this is what I see many of the enterprises are doing. So the moment they onboard a customer, they will imagine or create a workflow. What are their lifetime journey needs, and how we can cater, or how we can be a part of this customer's lifetime journey, so that so that there is a value that can be derived from the association with this customer. This is called as a lifetime value of customer. In fact, this is very much very useful parameter to look at to gauge your return of investments, or return on equity for your firm. So we call it the LTV, the lifetime value of customer. In fact, the word LTV used interchangeably in other industries, but LTV for our marketing purpose is more of lifetime value of customer. In fact, for some of the clients, say, in order to measure the lifetime value of customer, they look at look at the customer age. Today you're a university student, what we can do to help you. And then once you graduate, you become an employer, so what we can help you. Then you get married and you raise a family, what are the things we can help you. Then you come into the middle age, so what are the things we can do. And then you go to retirement, what are the things we can do. So I'm not sure with a startup community it is feasible to cater for the entire journey of a customer, but definitely have a proposition in the lifetime journey, what are all the various phases a customer goes through, and where in his lifetime journey we can induce some of your service or offerings, so that we can be associated. So this is a quite important parameter to look at. And then the fourth one, which I feel is even more important, is the cost of customer acquisition. So how do you acquire the customer? It's gonna be very interesting. So I can give you some real examples or traditional examples. Traditionally, for some of the entities whom I work, they onboard customers by having so many agents. For example, some of the companies, they have some 3,000 agents, 10,000 agents to bring customers for them, take a credit card or a loan or some kind of a thing. So then what we mean by the cost of customer acquisition is, in order to onboard one customer, these sales people have to be on the ground. There are some operational expenses, and then there are some salaries needs to be paid, and then there's so many other associated costs, and all the customers or leads they bring, they may not be successful. So it's a good it's a ratio of successful versus unsuccessful. So the total cost of customer acquisition on the traditional channels is going to be very high. So that's why many of the players are looking for digital as an angle to acquire the customers. So this acquiring of customers on digital could be multiple ways. It could be through your internet portals or your mobile apps, or through an aggregators, or through some of your partners, mm, or through your blogs, or some other modes. The whole idea is to reduce the overall operation cost and the cost of acquisition. In fact, this will be a very key differentiator to portray your products from your competitors. Say, for example, what some of the in the financial service space where I am working, the thinking of some of the clients is, um, I think this is an industry metric. The cost to acquire is one attribute. The cost to serve is also another attribute. I think this is not included here. The cost to serve a customer physically is very high, versus the cost to serve a customer on digital channels, like using chatbot or using some mobile app support them, or contact center. These are less. So what the thinking of many of the clients we talk to is, they wanted to push from the traditional way to the digital way of acquiring and serving the customers digitally, so that they can reduce the total operating cost or the opex of the whole customer acquisition. And then whatever the savings they receive by serving them or onboarding digitally, they wanted to pass it as an incentive to the customers. So in a way, you use digital channels to create a pool of money, and then you translate this pool of money through a loyalty program or some other strategy to pass back to the customers, or to reduce the price of your product, so that it will increase the branding of yourself, and then the stickiness of your customers with your product. So this parameter, I feel, needs to be in the dashboard of CEOs. In fact, there need to be a screen in front of the C-level suite, and then daily they need to check, or in a frequent basis they need to check these parameters, which indicates the health of your company. This is what exactly I've seen in Malaysia for the customer acquisition and all. So in Malaysia, there are around some 50 plus wallets, e-wallets. Every other day, I see a new e-wallet coming in the market. In order for e-wallet in order for this customers to onboard this e-wallet company, or use this e-wallet, they will give you some Starbucks voucher or some coffee voucher or something. So the 10 ringgit or 20 ringgit. So in this example, The cost to acquire a customer is that voucher value, which is the 10 ringgit or 20 ringgit. So that is what we mean customer acquisition. So that is only one attribute, but so many other costs that are involved in the acquisition cost. But what is happening in some of these areas is the customer will install this e-wallet. They get this coffee voucher. They go to Starbucks. They redeem for the coffee. They drink the coffee, and then they uninstall the app. Meaning, your 10 ringgit which you have given as an incentive is not helping to retain the customer with you. So the customer is more intelligent than your strategy. So meaning, you have to bleed money, you have to give every day a coffee voucher in order to make this customer to be on your portal or your product or platform. So which is bleeding, like unless you have a very strong investors with lot of money, we cannot throw this money like anything. But definitely this will be a very difficult scenario, since we are talking of a startup, or sorry, since we are talking of startup or a fintech kind of a players. So how do we keep the cost of acquisition is very key. And then the next is number 5. This is called as the sales team response time. In fact, this annoys me as well. Like for example, if I'm traveling to Indonesia, although I have travel insurance and all, but if there are some other people traveling with me, if I want to book the travel insurance, although I can book digitally, but if any mistake happens or something, we have to work with the sales team or service team. But the response time is quite less or delayed. You ask today, you only get response after 3 days, and then after 3 days it is won't resolve, and the fourth day you will get a new person, and then you have to talk the conversation again. You have to start fresh. So I mean, this is just one example. I think we all know the about the response time. So how fast you can close from sales, how fast you can respond to the customers is also a quite key and an important KPI to be looked at. Because the more you delay to a lead, the quality of these leads will get diluted, because the customer get annoyed. They might reach your competitor, or they might lose completely interest, or whatever the budget he parked for that thing, he might have reprioritized to something else. So it is dangerous if we drag or if we sit on a lead rather than acting it. Okay. And then the sixth parameter is website traffic to website lead ratio. So this is I think many of you are looking at the online channel as your business. So this KPI will help us to measure the quality of your website traffic, because we don't want a 16-year person to come and visit your website because he don't have knowledge to buy some of your product. So and then how much of this traffic is converted into the leads. It's a good parameter. But if you're investing too much, if you're investing on your digital channels, this is a good parameter to see whether you're getting the right ROI or return on your investment. This is the sixth parameter. The seventh parameter I have here is a website lead to marketing qualified lead. We call it the MQL ratio. This this help to understand the quality of leads your marketing is generating. So you might be having lot of partnerships, associations, or marketing campaigns, sales campaigns, and all. So this gives a ratio how much leads you're getting to from the website or digital channel, and then how many of them are getting qualified. The next ratio I have here is MQL to SQL ratio. MQL is the market qualified lead to sales qualified lead. So this look at, I mean, obviously we use the word marketing and sales interchangeably or connected, but in a typical organization, there are two different teams and there are two different clans, to be honest with you. So the sales team have their own incentive driven agenda, marketing team have their own agenda. So there's always then action in silos on different ways. So this ratio quickly tell how much is the synergy we have um, how much is the synergy we have with respect to the marketing and the sales team. What is the cohesion and synergy, they are all working together. So this is another key parameter to look at. So before I move to the next slide, in this particular slide with all the 8 key marketing KPIs, I feel if I have to rate the key KPIs you need to focus very much is first is on the cost to customer acquisition. That is by default you have to consider. The second is the lifetime value of customer, and then the others are something which you need to track as well. But the key is 3 and 4. All right. Moving to the next one. The other 8 marketing KPIs I have here is that the ninth one is in lines to what we have just discussed now. It is more of a SQL to quote ratio. So you might have brought so many sales leads, and then you only um, submitted code to few of them. So what is this ratio of conversion? And then the next parameter, like if I mean all these ratios are derived from the sales funnel or the sales life cycle. You get a lead, you send a quote, and then you convert it. So at each of this milestone, you need to measure how many sales have been generated and from which channel these sales are coming from, how many have been converted, how many of these leads have been sent, we have sent the quote, and how many of them are closed. So the next ratio we see here is the closed ratio, how many quotations you have given, and what is the closed ratio. So this is mostly used by the sales team in order to measure their performance and to derive their incentive. And then the 11th one is more of website traffic. In fact, this is a very interesting insight to know where are your customers are coming from. And then what time, I mean, usually I use this um, KPI when I was working for a project in US for one of the payments company, where they do a lot of online campaigns. They publish a lot of information online. So they really wanted to know from where from where their customers are coming from. So like what is the landing page, from which other page they're coming to your website, and then they will also know how much time they are spending on your website, like, and which time zone they are coming from, like they're coming at night 8 o'clock or in the morning, and what is the age group of that person who is coming to your web page. So there are so many things that can be derived. It's like an intel on your web traffic, to see the location, demographics, what is the landing page, the source page from which they come on, after from our page where did they went to. So all this analysis we can do to optimize the experience on your website, and then channeling it right on your website. For example, you might be working with a lot of network or partners. So based on this website traffic, you know which partner is really pushing traffic to your website, which partner is not pushing the website, so that you can reprioritize some of your synergies accordingly. And then the 12th is the important one also, which is the social media reach and engagement. I think these days, without social media, we can only go a little far. With social media you can go beyond the far, or the so what we see on the social media reach is how do we engage. Like social media could be mean multiple things, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all those things. How fast you are responding to the queries, and how well you are diplomatically responding to the abuse on social media. That's also been catered. And then you can track the engagement through metrics. You can also decide how many of them are lead conversations, and the percentage of web traffic that are coming from social media efforts. Like you might have put some posters on your Facebook or something, which will and then you have a redirect URL to your web traffic from your Facebook page. So you can really measure the success of your social media campaign with this parameter. The 13 which I have here is the email marketing performance. I think from a traditional, without getting too much into the digital things of internet and a mobile kind of a campaign, you can look at email marketing performance. I think this is one of the most widely used email campaign. Like there will be some 10,000 bulk emails or SMSs which will be sent to promote your product or service. And then this email marketing performance is um, to check how many of them really opened your email, how many of them really looked at the attachment you sent, how many of them really clicked at the link you have in your email. Does it really send? You can also use this to check whether this email address is right or wrong, because there will be a failure message if this email didn't reach them. So you can also do a quality check on your email addresses as well. And then um, and it's one of the fastest and the cheap way to reach the customer on the email marketing campaign. When you as an organization, you can have a strategy for both social media and then email marketing separately. So the performance of the all campaigns you do email, you need to analyze, judge, and further derive insights to fine tune your email campaign. And the 14th one is in lines to your SEO strategy, like inbound link building. Um, it is like knowing like what kind of leads you're getting, or the links getting based on your SEO strategy, how well your SEO strategy is helping in order to get your leads. So that comes from the 14th parameter. The 15th one is landing page conversations. Like the way I've mentioned 11 here on website traffic, this is one step before the website traffic. It's like landing page. um, so you might be having a lot of other landing page, other products, your website or other channels or your network. They might push some of the contents to your website. So this KPI is to measure the landing page conversations with them, and how many of them can be converted. And then the 16th is more of a traditional one, which is the blog post. Many of these CEOs these days, I see they write blogs on LinkedIn or some other channels. And then if there is any potential interest, they might get redirected to redirected to your website. So this is another attribute. So out of this 8 key KPIs here, I would like to look at 11 and 12, or the other key parameters, like the website traffic or social media reach and engagement, that are important to look at. And then if you're also looking at alternate channels like landing page, blog post, that's also good to look at as well. So I'll take a pause here. I mean, apologize, I need to drop off for another meeting in 5 minutes or so. But if there's any questions from the team, I would like to take from here. Hope this 16 marketing KPIs which I've mentioned make sense to you. Some of them are very essential to track at a periodic basis, and some of them, the rest, it's good to have an intel on some of these.
Maybe we just have time for one quick question before Gopal has to hop off.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, just to give everyone a bit of a context, because these 16 KPIs are very important, we also recognize that there's only so much we can cover in this short session, right? So we have kindly requested the good folks at Deloitte to say if they can send us additional content on these 16 KPIs, so that you can digest at your own pace. And if you have any questions, you can let us know. Also, just a bit of an open secret, quite a fair bit of this used to be my past life. So I might also be able to help you to respond to some of these questions. Although my knowledge could be a little bit outdated now, but I like to believe I still kind of know a little bit, okay? So I might be able to help also. So yeah, if you have any of such questions, let us know. We can direct them to Gopal, or some of them we might be able to reply you directly. Okay, anyone have any questions you want to type in before we let Gopal pop off? Okay,